Hold on for a second. What's up, YouTube family? I would like you guys to make sure you like and subscribe to our video. It would help us get into the algorithms so we could be seen and bring more engaging content to you guys. So, like I said, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Appreciate it. And welcome to another edition of the Pick and Downs podcast. I'm your host, per usual, Sean Tyson, here with Zoo and Peebush. How you guys doing?
Doing well, man. I'm in Michigan this week, man. Got a nice little drive back to Chicago at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. Oof, just brutal. But, man, we're in tournament season, man. And I got to say, I'm a little underwhelmed. It's kind of been a boring tournament, man. I was looking at this, and I know we'll talk about it, but in round of 32, man, 11 of the 16 games had a 10-plus point differential by the end. Not very competitive. Had a handful of good games. I know the Houston-Texas A&M game was easily the best.
That was the best game, yeah.
The tournament. A couple other decent games, but, man, maybe it's the talent pool is just kind of the gap is getting larger. I want to know what you guys think about it, but just hasn't been as exciting this year. I don't know.
Yeah, for me personally, not gonna lie, one night I was watching the games. I fell asleep, but I woke up to a nightmare. Because I remember one of my brackets. This is like I have my algorithm bracket. So based on the numbers, I just make a bracket, right? But then in one of my bigger brackets, you got to have a little contrarian pick to get the extra puntos, right? To get the extra points. And I looked at the teams. I like my NBA guys. Guess what team I picked?
Kentucky.
Oh, Kentucky. Jesus Christ. Never again. One thing about Kentucky is they produce NBA guys, especially NBA guards. Like, their resume in the NBA is actually unbelievable how many players they actually produce. But in the tournament is just heartbreak after heartbreak. Losing the first round, losing the second round, consecutive in the last couple of years. Like Calipari with these young, like he's still recruiting these young studs, but the inexperience, they just get exposed. He lost to some guy that made 10 threes in a game. Like, that dude, shout out to that man. Like had a little... Yeah. Shout out to him having his college moment, get some NIL deals right after cooking the Kentucky Wildcats. like he's like, yeah, the other team got a bunch of future pros. I ain't going to make the NBA, but I can play with any of them. And he had 10 3-pointers and like Kentucky, like offensive, they played pretty well that game, but it just their defense sucks. So that was probably the most shocking thing for me personally in the tournament. So yeah, not gonna lie, a lot of blowout games. So fell asleep one game. I forgot what game I was watching, but I passed out watching it.
Yeah,
tournament is shifting. Like, it's the portal. Guys having different options now. I mean, I want to say that 90% of the college basketball landscape probably has most of the talent. But yeah, I know they just shut down the G League at night, but still people are going to like overtime elite or going overseas.
Yeah.
Like, the best talent is still not going there. So I kind of feel like that, coupled with the transfer portal where it's getting spread out, then you're probably just going to get boring games. And two, it's just no identifiable star either. Like Zach Edey for Purdue, like, dude, he's going to be a mid to late second round pick, and he's their star in men's college basketball. That's why, like, I've watched the games just to keep up with my picks, but like I'm more watching the women's game, and I know there's been way more blowouts over there, but it's just they have more stars. Like, it's interesting basketball, and they kind of have a nice formula. They're there for 4 years, so it was like you're gonna find a star. Like, the stars you see that are freshmen are going to be there in 2 to 3 years, and that's just college basketball. At least on the men's side, they got to figure some stuff out, because the tournament is like everybody in. I mean, I would say the world gets involved in this. So it is still the biggest event, but it's not, when you don't have any stars, it's just kind of, you're hoping for the upset. And then when they're blowouts, it's kind of like, you're just now looking to see if your bracket is decent. So I don't know, but we're definitely going to be going into the Sweet 16. There's been some upsets and some surprises that are in this side of the bracket. So I wanted to ask the guys, what are their thoughts of Sweet 16s? Are they, maybe seeing some new teams that may want to, get on their coattails and ride that? And people, you can go ahead and start with your analysis on this.
I mean, boys, all 4 number 1 picks back in the Sweet 16, man. This was the year of the chalk. You know, I know we
Yeah,
talked about
chalk picks, man. Yeah, chalk
the picks,
A lot of
man. I
chalk.
mean, but but looking at it, you talk about Zach Edey, right? Just he's the best player in college, and he's just
he is.
he's dominant. And you're looking, they're facing a Gonzaga team that handled Kansas pretty well. I thought they actually looked very good in that game, especially in the second half. I think they could give Purdue a run, but man, you got to get Edey in foul trouble, and I think that's really the only way. And I just don't see a team having dominance to force him to foul and really attack him at the rim. So, especially on that side of the bracket, the only team and the game I am actually most excited for in the Sweet 16 is on that same side with Tennessee and Creighton. I think that game is going to be great. Tennessee, we know they're a great defensive team. They had a little bit of a scare against who was there? Who did they play in the last round? Was it
Texas?
Was it Texas? Yeah, Texas 4-point game. I mean, looking at that game, man, Creighton's fun to watch. I mean, they can score the ball. This is easily, I think we've mentioned this, Doug McDermott's best team, or McDermott's team, easily that he's had at Creighton, even when his son was there and they kind of gained relevance. So that's the game I'm for sure watching the Sweet 16, and I do think that both teams could give Purdue a run for their money. But man, I think the only one seed that I could see a little bit of concern for is UNC against Bama. I think Bama's super aggressive offensively. They just run up and down the court. They're the highest scoring team in the country up there with the Kentuckys and Arizonas of the world. Who is my pick? That is my contrarian pick as long as Caleb Love in Arizona. They keep going, man. That's going to be the difference. Because, and I will say, they've actually made me a little nervous in that Dayton game, but it kind of reassured me that they were able to hold the lead, because there were a lot of teams this past week that went up, and then towards the end of the game they just kind of faltered. We even saw that with Houston. They got away in overtime, but man, they almost blew that game against Texas A&M. So seeing some of the top teams actually be able to hold their leads against quality teams, because Dayton can just get hot. And they're just one of those teams kind of along the NC State lines. Even Clemson got hot. And now they're in the Sweet 16 against a Baylor team that I thought was going to go far.
Me
so
too.
it's kind of been the chalk number ones are there. Most of the number twos are there.
Yep.
Some of the number threes are there. And then after that, we just got a couple outliers. Clemson and NC State kind of stand out for me.
NC State for sure.
Yeah,
NC State.
Yeah, shout out to DJ Burns.
Yeah,
I was watching his game because he got that Zebo body chubster out there, but he got a nice footwork. Like
if you go look at his high school photos, he's from South Carolina. If you go look at his high school photos, he was a big guy, but he's definitely transformed. Like he's put on some pounds.
Yeah.
He's definitely a big dude.
I guess my last concern is over two of the top, higher 12 seeds, and that's Illinois. I don't think they've been challenged enough, and now they got to go up against Iowa State and Marquette. Even though they got challenged by Colorado, I think NC State, they might underestimate this one. This is their third underestimation type game. And after you do that a couple times in a row, man, you're bound to get unlucky. So I think there's a couple games I'm monitoring. I do think, like I said, Tennessee-Creighton is going to be the most exciting game just for battling it out, I think. But I do think there's a couple trap games when you're looking at some of the higher seeds as well. Not that Iowa State is worse than Illinois, but I do think Illinois is kind of on cruise control, and now they really got to turn it up. So it should be, hopefully it's better than the first two rounds. That's all I'm hoping for.
But all I know is that UConn game is going to be another blowout. Because from the first two games of the season, nothing in my mind has zero doubt. It was pure domination of this is the defending champ. And as I say, for our team to go back-to-back in college, extremely rare, but they looked poised. They took their team opponents seriously, even though they were obviously outclassing them talent-wise. And they just blew them out. Like, just easy money. And when they play next San Diego State, good luck. They played them last year. They whooped them last year. History's going to repeat itself. Spreads over 10. I'm betting the spread money every time, man. It's going to be another ass whooping because the UConn Huskies are here. And from looking at the other team, because you got Houston barely surviving. Like that game was a coin flip. And it was a coin flip. And I don't think anyone picked Texas. Like, did anyone like Texas A&M? Yeah, for that upset. No. I didn't hear anyone talk about Texas A&M as a sleeper pick. So them losing that They couldn't beat a team in regulation. So Houston, sorry, I got no respect for you, man. It took you overtime to beat that team. So no respect for you at all. Moving on from them, like Illinois, Iowa State, that's a little, both nice, solid teams, but they ain't making any noise.
Those would be the teams who I think they could cover against UConn. They could cover.
You think they cover? But all I see, they're going to, whoever come to the chopping board, chop that ass up. UConn, easy Final Four appearance. And I'm telling you, the sports books, I'm telling you. And I'm telling you, man, it's not just me. The sports books know, man. UConn, pretty much, they're versus the field right now based on like Vegas odds for them to win a championship. After winning the first 2 games, you're getting UConn Huskies to win the championship at only plus 200. Plus, that's versus the field. Plus, that's it. So it is a severe, like they are by far the favorites to win it. So nothing from these first couple of weeks. I haven't really been impressed. Like I like Arizona because, I like the transfer portal. Caleb Love. I saw him in North Carolina. Big shot taker, very high volume scorer, potential NBA pro in the second round as more of that combo guard that could get a bucket. Exactly, that 6-man type of guy. So he potentially have an NBA future, and they still have one more pro on the roster. And Arizona 3-point shoot. I like the team. Like that's probably the team I'm most worried about.
As you should be.
In the entire tournament because, man, I'm sorry. Houston, not worried about Duke. No, Purdue, they've been good, but the competition obviously is a 1 seed.
Yeah, they ain't played anybody either.
Yeah, they haven't played it. They haven't been challenged.
Say the same about UConn.
Yeah, that is true. But I've seen them get it done. Yeah. Purdue, I see them lose to a 16 seed. So I need a little more resume from that team. So that at least now they took care of business, didn't lose to a 16th seed, took care of Utah State. That game was like an absolute massacre. So shout out to Zach Edey putting up some ridiculous numbers, especially in college basketball. Like talk about PER in college basketball. This guy is putting up some Shaquille O'Neal numbers in college basketball right now. So I'm like, okay, this is your time to shine because you're playing against a Gonzaga team that not gonna lie, got a little break because that Kansas team was injured. Thought their best one of their best players. So Kansas for me, that was like not really a threat because one of their best players are injured. So Gonzaga is now considered, I would consider a true blue blood program, consistently good every year, making it to the tournament. That would be a legitimate good win for this Purdue team. I believe they will challenge them for the first time this tournament. But I feel like this is Zach Edey's time to go Final Four. So I'm rooting for the big fella because this is last chance, potentially making the NBA next year as a second-round pick. And you're going to give as much good tape as possible. So I feel like all the motivation is there for them to get it done. So I'm not going to lie. I feel it might be 3 number 1 seeds.
Plus Arizona?
Yeah.
So you do think Houston's going to make it out?
Houston, I'm a little less conviction. I'll say 2 number 1 seeds. Give me the Arizona, and out there, I couldn't really get a feel for it.
I don't know if I see, but here's the thing, Zoo. You look on that side, Duke quietly is very much under people's radar this year, which is unprecedented.
Yes, they have. Yep.
Right? They've kind of gone under the radar. They've pretty much handled their business easily with much more competitive games, And I don't know, this Houston team, they could lose. And then you're looking at the other side. It's Marquette, NC State.
Yeah.
You're talking about, I'm not saying it could happen. It could be a 1-2 game. We could have a 1-11 game, but we could have a 4 versus 11 matchup. And Duke could just go to the Final Four.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
So
for sure.
That side, I think, is the most wide open, in my opinion.
For sure.
Yeah. I look at kind of Houston on the other side of like they used up like their get out of jail free card with that overtime win against Texas A&M. So then I look at it and it's like their path. Like I think if they get past Duke, I think they're going to the Final Four.
Yeah,
because I think they could beat Marquette or NC State. But I'm just going to tell you now, if Duke and UNC get to the Elite Eight, they're probably going to the Final Four. So I don't know who they'll be matched up with, but that's just, I mean, it's
the way it goes.
How we just talked about pre-pod about how the men's game, or I might have just said it in the intro, The men's game is kind of looking star power. We don't know who's the real star. Zach Edey, late.
Zach Edey ain't drawing ratings, man. He ain't getting ratings.
UNC Duke will draw ratings.
Oh yeah,
it did in that Final 4 years ago. Now I know Coach K had a lot to do with that, but I mean, if UNC and Duke get in the Elite Eight, I'm not saying their talent will put them in the Final Four, but let's just say the refs will have an understanding. They will have an understanding, and calls will be made. But I still kind of feel good about Houston. I think with Duke, I don't know if Duke has seen a team, I guess, as physical as Houston. And I will say UNC kind of plays a little bit of that up and down style that Houston plays. And Duke lost twice to UNC, which is a kind of a similar style team. I think UNC has a little bit better shooters, but Houston's style for like up and down is similar to UNC, and Duke kind of struggle with that. So, UConn, I think it's just a shoe, and they're probably going to make it to the Final Four. I don't really see anything. Like, my hope was that they were going to play Auburn, but then Auburn got that one guy ejected, and then they lost against Yale. So it's just like, once I saw that, I was like, I don't think Auburn's getting past the first weekend, and they didn't. So with that, that's just kind of UConn's birthright. They're probably going to end up in the Final Four. If I had to pick out of those, like the matchup, I probably want to see them against Illinois, because I think they could give them the most trouble. I don't know about Iowa State, but I still think it'd be UConn. North Carolina, I think them playing Michigan State, I liked how they responded in that game.
Oh, yeah.
Michigan State was kind of punching
them in the face
early.
They were up. It was a good first half for them.
And it's not surprising. It's a Tom Izzo team. Like, Tom Izzo plays physical. He's going to have guys that, he's going to have one or two guys that can get to the basket, draw fouls. They're going to have that one kind of lanky 6'10", 6'11" guy that can maybe, because I don't know who that guy was, but he was making a couple of threes with Michigan State.
Yeah.
I don't remember his name, but
they just make good decisions usually.
Tom Izzo is going to have teams that are going to fight. So it was good to see North Carolina bounce back. So I still feel good about them making the Final Four. But if Arizona gets in that Elite Eight, like I said, the revenge game with Caleb Love, I think he's going to be on.
That's Marcus on the good story. That's the only thing
that makes me that's going to make me a little nervous if I'm UNC.
We know who's making the Elite Eight, boys.
For sure. For sure. That is definitely – it's almost like a guarantee. I almost want to guarantee that. Like, UNC and Arizona is going to be in the Elite Eight. But, I think Purdue-Gonzaga might be Gonzaga's toughest game, because I think if they beat Gonzaga, I don't see Creighton or Tennessee. Because Tennessee, I still think they have one of the better players in the tournament in Dalton Connect. Like, and I was wrong about the depth. I think Tennessee he's such a good player, and they got a couple other guys that are stepping up. But he's still their best player, and he might just be one of the best players in the tournament, because he's an NBA guy. Like, he's going to be a first-round NBA guy. So I think he can maybe get them to the Final Four. And, I'm saying that with Creighton, having their who'd they play in that last round? Who was that? Oregon? That was actually a crazy game, too.
That was a good game.
Oregon. Oregon had those two guys that were going off. But I still think if Purdue beats Gonzaga, then I think Purdue's probably more than likely going to the Final Four. I just don't see what NC State, like, they're definitely the Cinderella, but I just feel like if they end up beating Marquette, which I think could happen, them getting matched up with Duke or Houston, especially if they get matched. Listen, if you guys know anything about the state of North Carolina, like, there's a pecking order in terms of, like, the state schools. Like, it's UNC, Duke are, like, always at the dinner table fighting to see who's number one. Then it's like way down the list, and it's like NC State. Then it's like way down the list, and it's like Wake Forest. Yeah. It's just because of sizes of schools. Like,
this is Sean. This is without Tim Duncan and Chris Paul for Wake Forest.
Yeah. Those days are long gone. Those days, there's not a lot of recruits going to Wake Forest.
Oh, you forgot the legend.
They got a sixth floor.
Jeff Teague.
Yeah, Jeff Teague.
Jeff Teague. All right.
Wait, didn't his brother go to Indiana? Where did he go?
No, Marquise
went to Kentucky. He went to Kentucky.
Okay, he went to Kentucky.
He was Anthony Davis's point guard.
Dude, didn't they win the championship that year?
Yes, they did.
Wow.
Last time Calipari had a good run.
And guess what? It was news coming out today. He's coming back. So I guess Kentucky's happy with it. I don't know. It's weird. But, yeah, I think NC State, if they were to get matched up with Duke, I hate to be – all I want to say is conspiracy, but it's just, come on, this is about ratings. And, like I said, if Duke and UNC get there, they're more than likely going to the Final Four. So I still feel good about UNC and Houston. Like I said, Auburn got knocked out. That was the one I was kind of mad before the tournament even started. I was like, God, I wish I would have picked Auburn to, like, get to the championship game, because I was so high on them. And glad I didn't because even though I got them in the Final Four,
I don't know how Yale won that game based on how San Diego State manhandled them. I was like, they just imploded.
Well, people were saying like when the guy got thrown out, and they said that shifted the momentum, but there was also rumors, which I still think Bruce Pearl is going to stay at Auburn, but there was rumors, I guess, before the tournament, after they won the SEC tournament and before the main tournament, that he's thinking about taking a Louisville job, which, I mean, Louisville's a way better job than Auburn, but it's still, Louisville is still in a tough spot because even though they have rich tradition and, I mean, they got national championships too. But
there's a
and they got money. They got money. You could kind of argue at least the last 2 years, Louisville's been down a lot, but over the last 15, 20, like they've been more consistent than Kentucky. Oh, yeah. Like Kentucky's kind of been, I mean, they're the more flashy one. It's like, but Louisville's, they're a good rich tradition, and I don't know. It's just the ACC's in a tough spot. Yeah, but you know what's funny? Richard Pitino's son is being rumored to go to Louisville. Like he's, I guess, in their top 2 or 3 searches. So for coaching hires, but that's beside the point. Like I said, I do feel good about Houston. Do feel good about UNC. And I do think with Purdue, if they can beat Gonzaga, which I think is going to be their biggest test, they're going to go to the Final Four. So
yeah,
I don't know.
It's wide open, but it isn't at the same time. It's kind of weird.
I have Houston as my winner, but I will say it's probably like I'm at a 40% now because the Texas A&M game was a little scary. Yeah, it's like, dude, y'all really gonna?
It could also lit a fire, though. It could have lit a fire. You know, you never know.
So I don't know. We'll see, but you know, I am interested in full disclosure watching the women's tournament. I'm ready for the Elite Eight and Final Four to see those matchups because it's just more star power over there. So we'll see. But college basketball, you know, I think they'll probably redeem themselves in the Sweet 16, Elite Eight, Final Four rounds. They're going to redeem themselves in terms of getting more people to watch. So we're going to stay tuned for that.